All right, so interest rate reforms can be considered one of the key reforms for China, if not the top reforms some could argue needed to address the imbalances and risks in China's economy. Professor Huo Deming from PKU's National School of Development, Mr. Einar Tangen, our current affairs commentator, joins us to talk more about this. Gentlemen, welcome. So I think this is very interesting. Governor Zhou Xiaochuan's comments earlier in the day on his press conference, he actually gave a time frame for when the deposit rate cap might be lifted 1 to 2 years, and when you lift the deposit rate, that essentially means the end of interest rate liberalization. First of all, is that true? Are we nearing the end of interest rate liberalization here in China?
Well, in China, if PBOC lift the control of the deposit rate, for China per se, it means the interest rate start to liberalize or start to determine by the market. So in a sense, it's different from the interest rate determination in the United States, where they were determined by the bond market, debt market, or corporate bond market. So in China, we have to say if you have the interest rate decontrolled, liberalized through this, the deposit rate regulations, then China pretty much have a market-determined interest rate.
So given this time frame, Professor Huo, 1 to 2 years when this deposit rate cap will be lifted, can we expect the deposit insurance scheme to be enacted, let's say, this year?
Oh, I think this year they will have the deposit insurance scheme be introduced, because that's the only way to keep small depositors their money safe.
Right.
And also you allow the interest to fluctuate, which will increase the risks for many, many depositors.
All right, so Einar, 1 to 2 years is sort of this time frame given by the PBOC governor. In this time frame, if we take a look at the global interest rate environment, lots of unconventional monetary policy going on here. Rates are at ultra lows for major central banks. Is this a good time for the PBOC to reform rates and lift deposit rate caps?
Well, there's no good time to do it, but the president is the first place you want to start. The issue here is why is China doing all of this stuff? This faith in the free market is there, but China hasn't actually grown purely on the free market and allowing that to go. So in terms of what it is, if you're out there and you're deciding whether you're going to hedge, you can be pretty certain that over the long time China will continue to improve because it's a stable market and has it. In terms of currency fluctuation, as you've seen in the last couple of weeks, China will act, and there are other forces that will pull the yuan down. Conversely, though, that will increase competitiveness of exports, which will actually help China's economy. Okay. So, mixed bag.
Mixed bag. Professor, quickly, your thoughts on this.
Okay. I presume that in China there's still a capital control, what we call it. But then, of course, we all understand that this capital control thing is also being liberalized. It's a process. So, on the one hand, we have this market, the deposit rate restriction is lifted. So, presumably in China, we're going to see a pretty high interest in comparison with the global interest rate. So, that will necessarily bring up to the question is, well, since I have a high interest rate in China, low interest rate in the United States, I should put my money into renminbi. And that's called what we call the arbitrage.
Right.
And if everybody doing so, then that will bring up the appreciation of renminbi. Remember, that will, a lot of people doing that will have renminbi appreciation, and also presumably bringing down the interest rate in China.
But you were talking before the show also, Professor, will the Chinese authorities actually allow this arbitrage to happen? That remains to be seen. Einar, I want to get your final thoughts on this. We heard earlier that there's going to be 5 privately owned banks that's going to be set up here in China. Now, all banks in China right now are in some form or way controlled by the state. What do you make of this? What's the significance of this? It seems like they're targeting mostly SMEs and retail investors for these private banks.
China has a number of major issues that it has to confront. One is the borrowing by SOEs. Another is governmental borrowing, local government borrowing, and also supporting the SMEs that are out there who are 60% of China's new jobs and budget. So by factoring in risk, which is what you're doing, by putting 5 new banks, you're sending a signal to the state-owned enterprises that we're going to start allowing the market to start pricing. So when governments or SOEs are coming in, they're going to have to show a lot more. There's going to be more transparency, and I think this is a signal. But 5 banks by itself does not an economy make, especially when it involves the size of China.
All right, this is a pilot scheme. After all, we'll see what happens when it gets rolled out. Many thanks for that, gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you in just a few moments.